Over the last 10 years, a lot has changed in Major League Baseball, between the players, the rules, the strategies, and so much more. So let's take a look at how baseball's evolved over just the last decade. Now, I want to focus mainly on how the baseball being played on the field has changed, because I could go down like 50 different rabbit holes and this video would be 9 hours long. So since we're still very early in the 2024 season, we're going to look at 2023 and compare that to 2013. And we'll start by taking a look at offense. This has been a priority for the league because more scoring is more exciting to watch, and the average runs per game has gone up almost half a run in the last 10 years, peaking at 4.83 runs per game in 2019, and the league OPS also hit a high point of 758 that same year, and it was still up 20 points in 2023. Now there's a couple reasons for this, and the first one that I have to mention is the juice balls. Rumors started going around that during the 2015 All-Star break, MLB made changes to the baseball that led to an increase in home runs. In 2017, the league broke the record for homers in a season that was set in 2000 during the peak of the steroid era, and in 2019, they shattered that record again by over 600 more homers. The balls were absolutely flying out of the ballpark, but we also had a rule that played a big part in league-wide offense, and that was the shift rule, where especially versus left-handed batters, teams were loading up a hitter's pull side to take away a lot of hard-hit grounders and low-line drives that would have normally gotten through or just over the infield. Baseball Savant only tracks shifts going back to 2016, where they were used 17.1% of the time across Major League Baseball, but that number climbed up to 39.6 in 2020 and was at 37.5 in 2022 before MLB stepped in and banned the shift that following offseason. With more teams shifting, the league-wide average on balls in play had kept dropping, so these pull hitters that were getting killed by the shift decided that instead of trying to get base hits by going into the teeth of the defense or trying to hit it the other way or drop a bunt like they want me to, fuck it, I'm just gonna go over it. With the juice balls, the shift, the universal DH getting added in 2022, and as teams started to embrace analytics more, we saw a shift, pun totally intended, in what the league was looking for in hitters, and it led to teams valuing a very different skill set. Back in 2013, you had 24 qualified hitters with an average of 300 or higher, compared to 9 in 2023. And if we're talking about hitters that were really only giving you pure contact and not much else offensively, in 2013, you had guys like Jacoby Ellsbury, Denard Span, Elvis Andrus, Alexi Ramirez, Marco Scudero, Nori Aoki, John Jay, Angel Pagan, and even Ichiro was still kicking around. But last year, it was really Nico Horner, Luis Ariz, Jeff McNeil, Gabriel Moreno, and Whit Merrifield. And you could make a case for Steven Kwan too, but he also walks a bit. 10 years ago, there was still an emphasis on making contact, but the league batting average dropped a bit starting in 2020 because of some of the stuff I mentioned earlier, but teams have also realized that batting average isn't as important as we used to think it was, and they're preferring guys that work the count and take walks instead of getting weak contact just putting something close in play. And they've been more okay with guys that are gonna swing and miss and strike out a bit more because those guys hit ball very far. Before we get to that, real quick, I gotta shout out the sponsor of this video, Southern New Hampshire University Sports Management Program. I always knew I wanted to do something to work in sports, and after trying to figure that out for years, I started doing these videos, but if I had a clear path to working in sports when I was younger, that would have made some of my life choices a lot easier. That's where SNHU comes in, an accredited nonprofit university with radically affordable tuition, voted one of the country's most innovative universities by US News and World Report. In their sports management program, you'll learn about the business and economics of sports, sports management principles, and how to gather and analyze data to let you turn your passion for sports into a degree and help prepare you for a career as an athletic director, sports information director, marketing manager, or other exciting roles in the sports industry. You'll be taught by faculty with real-world experience and have opportunities to connect with people in the industry. You can take advantage of an internship or experiential learning courses within the field, have access to SNHU's network of graduates already in sports-related organizations, and SNHU will be there to help you begin your job hunt when you graduate. So if you're ready to turn your passion for sports into a degree and maybe even a career, use my link in the description and pinned comment to find out more about this awesome opportunity and help support the channel. And thank you again to Southern New Hampshire University for sponsoring this video. Rather than making consistent contact, teams are preferring quality of contact. Instead of trying to string together 3 or 4 singles to score 1 run, they want guys that can move up multiple bases or just clear them with 1 swing. And since there isn't much of a difference in batting average between fly balls and grounders, and you get almost all of your extra base hits on fly balls, hitters have focused on lifting the ball more and hitting it hard in the air. So hitters have changed from more of a contact first, don't strike out and pick your spots to do damage kind of approach, to let's do damage anytime we can, and if we strike out a bit more because of that, then oh well. Because when we do hit it, there's a solid chance that something good's gonna happen, and you see this difference all the way up to the best hitters in the league. In 2013, out of the top 20 hitters in terms of WRC+, there were only 5 with an average under 300, but only 6 had at least 30 homers, versus 2023 where 12 of the top 20 hitters had an average under 300, but 9 had at least 30 homers. And surprisingly, strikeouts didn't change too much here. Both years had 4 of the top 20 hitters below average in strikeout percentage. And we can take a quick look at the difference in the MVP winners as well. And I know Ohtani pitched 2 and Acuna stole over 70 bases, but it's interesting to see that they all hit over 300, they all had an on base over 400, and they were all top 5 in the league in WRC+, but McCutchen winning MVP with about half the homers and by far the lowest slugging of these 4, that really jumps out at you. Now there's one other thing that's played a big part in how offense has changed over the years, and that's the pitching that they've been facing. So now it's time for us to talk about that. The obvious change over the years, we've all seen it, is that velocity, spin, and just stuff in general has been going through the roof. In 2013, there were 16 starting pitchers that went at least 50 innings with a fastball averaging 95 or higher, with Nathan Eovaldi leading the league at 97 miles per hour. In 2023, that jumped up to 49 pitchers, and Bobby Miller's 99.1 mile per hour fastball was at the top. We've got more pitchers throwing harder, and the average fastball's gone up over a mile per hour in just the last 10 years. And this jump in velo and stuff is definitely a part of higher strikeouts, because good luck hitting this shit. But also more walks because it's harder to control these pitches. And even though stuff has been improving, pitchers have actually been giving up more runs and arguably pitching worse. So something that's been a bit backwards is that while pitchers are throwing harder and better fastballs than ever, they've been throwing them less often and relying more on their off-speed pitches because those are harder to square up. And to use these effectively, they've been getting ahead of more hitters early, but living out of the zone more so they're getting hitters to chase these pitches. By starting more at bats 0-1, hitters can't be as selective as they would be if they were ahead. So that sets up those chase pitches out of the zone, and when hitters are chasing these nasty pitches more, then they're striking out more and they're not getting as many hits. So that's where pitchers have been way more dominant than they were 10 years ago. But with every positive that we get from a change like this, there's also the negatives. So while hitters have less time to make decisions on pitches and it's tougher than ever just to get the bat on it, it's also harder for the pitchers to know where the hell it's going, especially without sticky stuff apparently. And that's also going to be a part of why pitchers are throwing less strikes and why they've been giving up more runs. We talked about why hitters have made the adjustment to go for more bombs, but pitchers have also been playing a part in this. You have pitches being thrown and spinning harder than ever, so if you do manage to hit one of those things, it's gonna go a long way. And less command of these means more mistakes, and I don't care how good your pitches are. If you miss with it enough times against the best hitters in the world, they're gonna make you pay for it. You have more walks and more homers like we talked about because pitchers are having a tougher time controlling these nastier pitches, and with more velo and spin, when the batters do make contact, they're hitting the ball harder, which makes your defense's job behind you a lot tougher. I know we all have PTSD from doing drills up against a gym wall with your coach blasting balls off a fungo at you from 20 feet away. Now, the other drawback from guys throwing harder and going max effort more often has been that guys are having a tougher time staying on the mound as long, both in terms of pitchers dropping left and right from elbow and shoulder injuries, but even the guys that have managed to stay healthy, they just can't stay in the game as long. Now, I feel like now is when I have to mention the pitch clock getting added in 2023, and having less time to recover between pitches has definitely played a part in all of this, but how much is a topic for a different video. And starting pitchers have been getting pulled earlier and earlier for years now. One, because of analytics confirming that guys start to do worse when they see a lineup for the third time and they're getting tired, shocker, but also because guys can't throw max effort like they do now for as long. Starters have been going almost an inning less, averaging 10 less pitches per start, and the amount of quality starts where a pitcher goes at least 6 innings and gives up 3 runs or less has taken a complete nosedive. In 2013, you had 36 starting pitchers that threw 200 innings. Not threw them well, just pitched at least 200 innings. You know how many there were last year? 5. Logan Webb, Zach Gallen, Garrett Cole, Miles Michaelis, and Chris Bassett. That's it. Teams are getting less and less out of their starting pitchers, and that's why they're paying a premium right now for anyone that can be at least a major league level arm. Eduardo Rodriguez had a career ERA just over 4 and got a 4-year, $80 million contract this offseason. Lucas Giolito was coming off of back-to-back years with high 4s ERAs. He got a 2-year, $38.5 million contract, and Seth Lugo had his first full year as a starter at 33 years old last year, and a very good almost 150 innings got him a 3-year, $45 million contract. And comparing the Cy Young winners, 2013, those guys were going the distance. Even Garrett Cole, who's an absolute workhorse by today's standards, his 209 innings still doesn't catch either Scherzer's or definitely not Kershaw's 2013 seasons, and Blake Snell's the example of the new strategy of missing bats to keep as many runs off the board as possible, even if that means you're working way harder in less innings. And with teams getting fewer and fewer innings out of their rotation, that's meant that they're relying on their bullpens more and more, and having a stable of flamethrowers that you can just chuck out there for 4 innings a night is almost commonplace at this point. Bullpen usage has soared over the last 10 years, with relievers throwing over 3,000 more innings in 2023 compared to 2013, and with the rule change in 2020 that pitchers have to face at least 3 batters or finish the inning, relievers are getting more outs and throwing more pitches each time they come in. Bullpens are getting used more and more these days, and a good bullpen can be an absolute weapon, especially when you're using your best relievers in the game's biggest moments. A major shift we've seen in how relievers, and more specifically closers, are being used is that teams aren't using a traditional closer like they used to. Your closer used to be your best reliever that would only come in the 9th inning and get the last 3 outs to earn the save, which is when your team has a lead of 3 runs or less. But a lot of teams aren't waiting for the 9th inning to use their best relievers anymore. They're using them in the biggest moments late in a game. Back in 2013, you had both Jim Johnson and Craig Kimbrell leading the league with 50 saves, and 19 relievers got at least 30. But in 2023, Emmanuel Clase was first with 44 saves, the only guy over 40, and only 12 had at least 30 saves. But when we look at how tough the situations were that relievers were used in, we have the average leverage index on Baseball Reference that measures how much pressure a player faced in a game, with 1 is average, below 1 is less, and above is more. Sergio Romo had the highest ALI in 2013 at 2.294. That would have put him 5th in 2023, well behind Devin Williams' league-leading 2.565, and only 8 relievers in 2013 were at least a 2 versus 12 in 2023. So not only are bullpens getting used more and more relievers are throwing more, but the top relievers are having to face tougher and tougher situations, going against the other team's best hitters in the most critical situations more often. One final change I want to point out has to do with defense, and how the advanced stats that we have to measure defense now have completely changed one position in particular. We have stats like defensive runs saved, outs above average, and fielding run value now, which help us better understand a player's defense by measuring how many plays he was either able to make or not make versus what an average player would have done. Now, all these stats basically measure the same thing, just in slightly different ways. So everybody and even different teams all have different opinions on which of these they prefer, but these haven't really changed defense, they just help us understand it better than like fielding percentage does. The stat that's completely changed how a position is played is framing, or framing runs, because now we can see how much a catcher impacts a ball strike call, an at bat, or even an entire game just by how he's receiving the pitch. Now, I've done a whole video about this in Austin Hedges where I go way more into detail. You can check that out after this video, but now we can see how game-changing a catcher's defense can be on every single pitch, and not just when he's throwing out a base runner or blocking a ball. As fans, we're ready to riot in the streets and sacrifice Angel Hernandez to the baseball gods every time this shit happens, but don't always recognize what part the catcher played in tricking the umpire into calling a ball a strike, and this is where the focus for the position is gone, with catchers worrying more about receiving pitches and framing to steal as many strikes as they can, even if that costs them somewhere else defensively, because they gain way more from framing than they'll lose in blocking or throwing. There's been a lot of changes in baseball over the last 10 years. How hitters are approaching at bats, the pitches they're facing, the defenses, and even the rules that they're playing by. And I'm sure that there's some things I didn't mention, so leave a comment and let me know, what have you seen change the most in MLB in the last decade? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and you can check out more baseball content like this by clicking the video on your screen now. Thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. Have a good one. Later.